Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Seeking Excellence podcast. This is your boy, Nathan Crankfield. Seeking Excellence is here for you. This podcast exists to help to combat apathy, to combat ignorance, and I think most importantly, to combat despair. A lot of people just feeling like they don't have hope, especially hope in changing their lives, improving themselves, and improving their daily experience of their life. But we're here for you. And that is what this podcast is all about. And it exists to help to equip you, to inspire you to be the best version of yourself, and to really get the most out of life. And so incredibly excited to be sharing today's episode with you. Today I have a guest on. My friend Nathan Price has joined the podcast today, and we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. If you know me, you know that I care about this. You know that I care about the way men dress. And a large reason for that is that I think that the little things really do matter in life. Maybe it's the army in me. Maybe it's the logic in me that just knows that small things add up to big things. And so the way that you dress for mass, the way you dress for date nights, the way you dress for all these different things that happen each and every, day or week or month of your life, it matters. And so I want you to know that. And I want you to not just know that it matters what you do, but also to feel equipped in how to do it, right? I don't think that it's good to give you the ideas or challenge you on certain things, but not actually walk you through how to do that. Telling you that you need to budget and be a good financial manager of your personal finances is not good if I don't talk to you about budgeting, if I don't help you to do that. And so this is something that has been really placed on my heart, and I've prayed about a lot. And I've just been really moved by just thinking about how important it is that we dress well, that we take ourselves seriously, that we feel challenged in this area, that we're uncomfortable sometimes. Right? I don't mean uncomfortable by your pants being too tight, but just that it's okay to be a little warm. It's okay to be dressed up a little bit nicer than other people, right? To be raising the standards. There's so much in this topic that is just representative of what men need to be doing in society. I want to touch on two things that just recently have come to me as I've been talking about this really nonstop for some time now. The first is a story that happened to me the other day, and so I am at mass a couple weeks ago, and was just bothered by some of the things that men were wearing, but was trying to just not be focused on it. But then it really caught my attention, and even caught my wife's attention, who really doesn't think about this or care about this nearly as much as I do. But this was so stark that it even caught her eye, and that was that we had our ushers get up to make the collection, and 3 of the 4 ushers got up in shorts, sandals, and untucked shirts. Now, I think that's abysmal, to be frank with you. And part of the reason why I think it's so abysmal, because I know a lot of people think, oh, it's not a big deal, because so many people think today that nothing's a big deal, right? And this is something I've been reading about with my men's group, reading through the book Revolt Against Reality, also reading this book called Why Liberalism Failed. And both of them really point to a lot of these deeper societal issues and how we've changed over the last, especially 200 years, 100 years, 50 years as a society. But one of the big issues with this is we're just wrapping up this summer the National Eucharistic Congress. And we're supposed to be in this Eucharistic revival. And this was actually our parish's last week of Eucharistic preaching. They did 4-week series here in the Archdiocese of Denver, talking about the Eucharist, the true presence of the Eucharist, and how important it is, how central it is to our faith. Curtis Martin, you may have heard of him, founder and I think CEO or president of Focus. He gave a talk in my parish the following week where he talked about talking with Catholic converts who say that the hardest thing about being Catholic is other Catholics. He said that it's scandalous how little we care. That if we actually know what's happening in the Eucharist at the Mass, how do we only go once a week? How do we not have actual reverence when we genuflect? Why do we just go through the motions? How do we show up so nonchalant and frivolously if we know what's actually happening there? That's to me why it's scandalous to see men who are participating in the Mass or men who are serious about their faith. There's also, I've seen prominent Catholic speakers going to Sunday Mass in a t-shirt and jeans. Why is it scandalous that that happens? Because you're preaching to these people, to new Catholics who are showing up. They see you in video series, and they see you on stage talking about how important the Eucharist is, how Jesus died for our sins, how our suffering is redemptive, how he's the king of the universe and ought to, we should submit our entire lives to him, but you won't submit your clothes to him. You won't submit in this little way that makes you a little bit uncomfortable because maybe you don't like wearing, tucking your shirt in, or it's a little hot outside. How do we do that? How do we participate in the mass? How do we show ourselves as people who are examples to others, and then act in a way that reflects the same thoughts and beliefs that we are trying to eliminate in the church? The other thing that came up in another conversation with somebody else was regarding just society. It was actually a priest friend of mine. We were discussing this topic, and he was saying, well, Colorado, similar to California. I had a friend from California who made these same, I think, bad arguments about this. It just says, well, they're very casual states. They're just kind of casual, you kind of relax, whatever. I'm like, yeah, but you guys hate that aspect of these states, right? Is it any coincidence that the most casual, nonchalant states are also the most liberal states, the most progressive states, the most anti-Catholic states? Is that any surprise? That as they've moved in this direction, from men wearing suits to men wearing flip-flops, that they've lost all these traditional values that we love and cherish that we try to promote. I'm not saying that dress code was the main driver of that, but I think it's a part of it. I think you can see it as this greater scheme of how we've lost the family, how the father and husband being a respectful figure in the home, a respectable figure outside of the home, people appreciating and cherishing their family name, all of these things have been lost. And so how do we look at that as, all the byproducts of that as a negative thing? But then when we talk about trying to fix some of the behaviors that do contribute to those, the turning around of these things, we say, oh, no, well, you don't need to do that. You can show up to mass and flip-flops. And I'm like, Father, you also see people wearing jean shorts to their own wedding, grooms that are getting married in backyards and in basketball shorts and hats. Is that good? No, of course not, right? Of course it's not good. Why are they doing that? Because they don't understand marriage as a sacrament. They don't understand how important that day is. And they're not actually showing respect for their bride and for the people who have come to celebrate their wedding. And so the same goes for us. We also are showing up to a wedding feast on Sundays. We're also showing up to our bride every time we go out on a date night, as Nathan and I are going to talk about in this episode. So I want to encourage you to think about that. I truly think that this is such a powerful topic, because I think there's very few takes that I have in the church that I feel so strongly that I'm right about. I have not heard a single even slightly convincing argument against a man wearing pants and a polo to mass on Sunday. I think that is the bare minimum. I don't think that that's good, but I do think it's the bare minimum. I think it's not that I don't think it's good, because I do think that it's okay. I think it's acceptable. And I don't think there's anything wrong with sometimes doing what's acceptable. But I think that we should strive for excellence. That's why we're here, right? But one thing we definitely shouldn't do is be below acceptable and showing up like we would dress to a 6-year-old's birthday party on a Saturday afternoon. That is definitely not right. All that being said, if you want to learn more about the faith, and you want to learn more about some of the things that are making me crazy about the little things, I'd encourage you to check out Tan Books. We have a new affiliate code with Tan Books, Nathan15. You can use that promo code at checkout for 15% off. One of the books that I'm going to be reading here soon with my men's group is called Well Ordered Family. And so if you're a man out there, especially a husband and father, it is a family management system book that I think is very seeking excellence oriented, that I'm really excited about. And so we're going to be reading that as a group. And so I'll definitely be having some content coming out on that. So if you want to kind of follow along with us on that, you can order Well Ordered Family at tanbooks.com. Use Nathan15 at checkout. You can also get some great copies of St. Francis de Sales books in there, St. Catherine of Siena. Some of my favorite saints are the things you hear me refer to all the time. That you also do a $5 book sale every month. And so use code Nathan15 at checkout and you'll get 15% off at tanbooks.com. Without further ado, my friends, it's time to proceed to today's episode with Nathan Price. Again, he is one of the co-founders. You'll hear this, but he's one of the co-founders of Shepherds. He's I wouldn't call him my personal stylist, but he's my personal style coach when I have questions about style and how to dress and how to look good. But he's an awesome man. More importantly, a great friend of mine, a great husband, a great father. And he's a man who really embodies seeking excellence, because he's getting after it in life and trying to do his best to glorify the Lord in all that he does. So without further ado, let's get to this episode with Nathan Price. Amazing. What a great day. Today I've got my man with me, Mr. Nathan Price. Nathan, you have been a blessing in my life. Obviously, just through our friendship, we see the world, I think, very similarly, but also been a blessing in helping me to stay a little bit more fresh, especially on Sundays. And so you seem like the man to bring in to talk about this topic and theme that I've been on for a while now, which is just propriety and dress, as St. Francis of Sales would call it, but just want to talk about clothing in general. Would love to start with you kind of just giving us an overview of who you are, some of your background, your faith story, and especially how you got into fashion, clothing, especially loving menswear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm grateful for the opportunity, also for your friendship. We certainly see a lot of things eye to eye. We also share a really great common name. So we have that
That's
in
right.
common. So for all the listeners who get a little bit confused, there are two Nathans. So you are going to have to figure out who has the different voice if you aren't watching this. A little bit about me. I'm based in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a co-founder of Shepherd's. It's a men's custom clothing company. We make everything from suits and sport coats to jeans, chinos, polo shirts, some really nice casual outerwear, bomber jackets, vests, things like that. I've been working in clothing since mostly off and on since I was 16 years old. I'm married. I have two, wonderful children. My son is 3. My daughter is 6 months. And I care a lot about encouraging and helping men to live their best life through their clothing. And that's putting themselves in the best light, whether that's professionally or for their family or in the dating scene, through clothing and using that as a tool. And I'm kind of the person who, if you would have asked me at 16 if this is what I would have been doing, I would have never told you that it would have been working in clothing. I played sports, baseball and football and basketball, and I was the dude in Nike sweatpants and a Nike t-shirt, and I wanted nothing to do with dressing up. I went to Catholic grade school and high school, and on formal attire day, it was like, what is the least formal thing I can possibly wear and not get a demerit, or not go to detention or things like that. So I don't.
Was your high school a Thai high school or no?
It was on formal attire day. So when we had mass,
Okay.
or if it was a holy day, it was jacket and tie, and I did not want to wear that.
Wow.
So how I fell into this industry is, like, I guess, a miracle within itself. So
That's amazing, man. I love it. And what about at that point in your life? Were you pretty into your faith, or was it something that was kind of like on the back burner?
when I was a young man, definitely on the back burner. I think I I I I I grew a bit disinterested with the faith. Um, not to blame everything on my parents or my upbringing, because it was certainly, at the end of the day, it's my fault. But I saw a form of the faith that was extremely casual, extremely laxed, extremely, you could even say, abuses in the Eucharist. I went to a very laxed parish that had, rock and roll and things like that. And so when I got to high school, my focus was, playing sports and getting good enough grades so I could potentially play baseball in college. That was my whole, and chase girls. Those were my, like, a couple priorities. And church was, the faith was certainly not in my top.
Not up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love it. And so what was the turning point for you?
The turning point was really, my reversion was my wife's conversion. So my wife joined the faith, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. And she started going through RCIA in our local parish. The RCIA was quite poor. And my wife came to me about 2 to 3 weeks in and said, "Hey, I'm not learning anything. I don't know a thing that the church teaches. RCIA is basically, let's read Father's homily this week and talk about why Jesus loves you." And she's like, I'm not learning anything. So I thought, oh shoot, like, how do I help guide her? And a great, my best friend from high school was attending the traditional Latin Mass, and he said, I called him up and he said, "Hey, get her private instruction with a traditional priest." I had no idea what that meant, but I called the parish. the priest said, yeah, I'd be happy to give her private instruction, but I need you to be parishioners. So, please come to mass this Sunday. By the way, it's in Latin. And I was like, what? Okay. Whatever.
They
So
do that?
yeah,
Right.
right. So, in Latin. Okay. So they probably say some Latin, whatever. So we show up to mass, and it was the traditional Latin mass offered by the Fraternity of St. Peter. It was completely different than anything I had ever experienced. And I remember that first mass, both my wife and I both cried. It was, I think for her, it was beauty and a seriousness about the faith that she was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was the exact same thing. I was like, where has this been my 23, 24 years of life? So through my wife's private instruction, I ended up going to every class with her as we went through the catechism and went through the church fathers. And I basically relearned my faith, that my faith, the answer to why are you Catholic isn't just Jesus loves me, but it was a whole lot more to it. So that's kind of the story, shortened up.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Well, I think, yeah, it's so important too. And I think one of the things we try to do, both of us, and just our example in our lives, is to show people, especially other men in the world, that you get to encounter a lot of people through your work, I'm sure, that just get to meet somebody that's serious about their faith. And it's amazing to me how few people have really seen that. I'm starting a small men's group working with some of my friends, and I just posted this on LinkedIn last week, and was just kind of talking about how one guy was just kind of there, and I was just kind of giving some context to the situation. I was like, why do I want to do this? Why do I do Seeking Excellence? A lot of them are Seeking Excellence listeners, and I'm like, why do I podcast? Why do I share these things? What is the situation that we're in? Because the reason why I always like to start there, whether I'm giving a talk or leading a group or whatever it might be, is in the military, in the Army, we have your operations order, which is basically how you brief your platoon on your mission that you have. The first thing you always start with is your situation, because you have to know the context within which you're operating in order to be effective and understand your mission and why the mission makes sense and why you should fight for it and even die for it. And then you get into the execution. A lot of times, I think we just kind of get into the execution, but painting for them the situation of, the church is in decline. We are struggling in a lot of ways. Yes, there's a lot of good things. You don't have to be pessimistic and despairing about it, but let's be realistic and understand where we currently stand.
Yeah.
And I was talking about our need for good men if we're going to rebuild the church, if we're going to revitalize the church. And one of the guys in there said, I didn't know the church needed rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just something, that goes back to what the Catholicism you grew up with, the Catholicism that I grew up with, where it was very lukewarm. There wasn't really much meat on the bones, and I think that it was in the midst of the decay, right? We're not that old. The decay started before we were born.
Right.
But we're in the midst of that. We're seeing the fruits of that. And then we were also kind of on this downward spiral where I'm hoping that now we're starting to really turn things around. And I believe that our generation will turn things around, but I think it's going to take most of our lives to do that.
I have a very short anecdote on that, but I was at mass last night. It was Sunday evening mass. We went, usually it's a little bit more casual and laid back at the local parish. The local Novus Ordo, because we spent all day yesterday out looking at a house. And this parish is typically very laid back. Sunday night mass is typically golf shorts and golf polos for men, and women are in everything from Lululemon to white jeans and maybe a dress here or there. But they recently got 2 new priests. And when I went down for communion, they had in front of the priest, they had the little like chapel kneelers to where you could kneel and receive on the tongue. So I think with the younger priests and movement of devout younger people, they had the pastor there before was in his 60s. Now he's 38. And last night was the first night, and I left mass and I said to my wife, I'm like, they haven't had that before. And my wife said, no, they haven't. And this is awesome. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Bro, I was on a podcast recording. It was an interview for somebody else's podcast last week or the week before. And they asked me at the end, what is your hope? Give us a message of hope for Catholics going forward. And I've been telling people all week, I'm like, one of the hardest questions I've ever been asked, because I know my answer is that almost all of the liberal, lukewarm, watered down, not lukewarm Catholics, but the watered down, we want nice Jesus Catholicism that really leads to decay is dying out.
Yep.
and I'm saying to myself, this is a hard thing to express, especially someone who is not twice my age, but probably 20 years older than me, is to say, okay, why am I optimistic? Because us young fathers and husbands,
Yep.
the young priests that are in the church, the next generation is pretty serious about this stuff, and we're very strongly leaning towards the things that I think are going to rebuild the church, and that gives me a lot of optimism and hope.
Yeah.
And that's hard to tell people, to say, oh, because I think a lot of the people who ruin things are
Yep.
retiring and dying,
Yep.
but it's true.
And I would say one of the things that my wife mentioned to me in the car was, she said, "Oh, we should have gone back and on the way out of mass said to Father, like, hey, I really appreciate the kneeler."
Yeah, affirm that stuff.
And so, because those, our priests they're going into a parish, which I'm sure the average age is late 50s or early 60s. And there's been one way of doing things for a long time, and they're starting to make incremental changes. And you need to go in there and you need to affirm that and make sure that they know that there's people supporting them. So I certainly next Sunday need to do that.
Absolutely.
And I would encourage any of your listeners, if there's small incremental changes, whether it's being able to kneel for communion or having only male altar servers and having, if you have a priest who starts making changes, just let them know that you support that, because oftentimes they hear a bunch of complaints about, why are things changing? So it's good to let them know that things are, changes for the better, that you support that.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask for those changes, I think, at your parish. If you're at a parish that the priest is not taking that initiative, to express that, because
Yep.
it's very similar, I think, to we have in the society, right? In a lot of our cultural problems, we have a very local or a very vocal and loud minority that is growing over time because they're so loud and vocal, right? You think about this in the trans issues, right? It's a very small percentage of the community, but they've been so loud and so violent, in a sense, attacking the culture.
Yep.
That now the minority has grown, but they're also, making a lot of cultural changes and societal impact.
Right.
And the same thing goes in the church, where you have the liberals who hate that, if he gives a pro-life homily or whatever, the leftists, the liberals in the church, the unorthodox in the church are going to complain about you going ad orientem, about you using incense, about why can't my daughter be an altar server? So affirming that, we have to be extra loud, I think, in affirming those things and in requesting those things. And this kind of goes back to everything we're going to talk about today. And kind of the theme that I've had for the last several months in talking about masculinity is, you want to be the type of man that it means something to the priest when they say that, right? If you show up and if you're in flip-flops and a graphic t-shirt, and you go up afterwards, you're like, hey, Father, I really appreciate the fact that you have bro.
Yep.
He's going to be like, who's this clown? Who's this joker that shows up? Because those are the ones that always trip me out, is you show up to mass in flip-flops and a graphic t-shirt, and then you kneel to receive communion. No kneelers, no chapel kneelers, but you're now suddenly walking up and you just transform into this trad man. Right during the walk up, the procession to communion. I'm like, what happened to you? You didn't have that same vibe. You didn't have that same energy when you were getting dressed this morning, but now suddenly you are. Yeah, that kind of stuff blows my mind.
It's incongruence.
Exactly.
It's a lack of intentionality. There's absolutely nothing wrong with, if you are on vacation. Well, I should retract that statement. If you are on vacation and you have nothing else to wear, yes, get to mass. But you should dress in a way that matches the seriousness with which you take the mass. And we're going to get into this deeper. So I guess to kind of dive into it, I've noticed, from following you and knowing you've been spitting some fire on social media about some of your thoughts on dress and attire at mass. And I know that I've kind of watched you've taken some of your own steps down this pathway. So what kind of started it off for you? And talk me through, from someone who's not into clothing, who doesn't work in this space.
Yeah.
What made you really consider taking this more seriously?
Yeah. So for me, I think I've always had this idea that dressing nicer made me feel better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that, even going back to, so my grade school was my Catholic grade school was a khakis and polo. And then we
Mhm.
got into high school, and I'm pretty sure we had to wear a tie every day. And it was either like a short sleeve shirt, which always looks goofy, but
Yeah.
we didn't have AC in our high school, to be
Okay.
fair. And then we had the long sleeve shirts and everything.
Yep.
I think occasionally maybe a polo, but I think by and large it was a tie situation. And
Yeah.
so that was big for me, was just kind of realizing, okay, I feel a little bit better. I feel a little bit different when I wear this. And then getting into college, it was a free for all. And so I started doing what everybody does. You start wearing sweatpants and basketball shorts. And then it was really around Christmas time. My mom would buy me new clothes. My mom loves buying me clothes still to this day.
Yep.
And she would buy me new clothes. And I've always been a big polo guy. We were just at the outlets yesterday, Emily and I with Jordan, and we were in
Yep.
polo. And the guy was like, he said, I think you probably own a lot of polo stuff, don't you? And I was like, I do. I really,
Mhm.
I really do.
Mhm.
I really enjoy it. And I've worn it for a long time. And I would get this new stuff. And so then I would be like, well, when am I going to wear this? And so I'd start wearing it to mass, but then also to class.
Yep.
And people would start making fun of me because like, why are you wearing button downs and polos and stuff to class? Like, this isn't, high school or whatever. And I was like, I just feel better. And I noticed I had this whole conversion. And I could get into a deep story in my college years of, I graduated high school with just like barely a 3.0 and got into all the colleges I applied to, mostly because of affirmative action, I believe, and I got to the honors program because I was Black on my application and things like that. But it really did help me because I took the initiative and the approach that, I'm not a good student. I got by, cheating in high school and just kind of on my abilities, right? My intellectual abilities, but not studying and hard work and diligence. And I got into college and I was like, well, let me learn from these kids. I lucked my way into the honors program. I never fooled myself into believing I deserved it.
Mhm.
And thankfully I had people who told me their GPAs that did not get an offer to join the honors club, white kids at the school. So I knew that I was there because I was Black.
Mhm.
And so I said to myself, well, let me learn from these other students and what they're doing. And so I just started to realize all these different things that were contributing as I'm searching for these deep answers, really the foundations of seeking excellence. What's the best way to live my life? What's it mean to be a good man? What's it mean to be Catholic? Asking these serious questions. And I'm seeing all of this start to come together. And so I start to sit in the front of class instead of in the back. I start to dress nicer for class. I start to ask questions, right? I start to do extra reading outside the classroom. I'm reading other books outside of this. I'm spending time in prayer, and I'm starting to see all of these things are contributing to me feeling like a good man, to me being more virtuous, to me being holier, to me being more joyful and more peaceful and more confident, not in an arrogant, cocky way like I was in high school, but actual genuine confidence where I feel content and satisfied with myself, right? And have this just proper alignment between me and God, and then my internal self of, who I am, what I'm here for, and what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
so all of that really contributed. And then I think I had probably a little bit of a lax time in the Army, just because you're in uniform every day, and so it was like kind of mass on Sunday. I think it was typically still like khakis and a polo. Like I never really was super sloppy for Sunday mass. I think that was just something that I never wanted to do. But I wasn't dressing to the way that I am now, and so I think that was just kind of over time getting more and more orthodox, getting more and more conservative, getting more into masculinity. And so I
Mhm.
think having a son especially just kind of lit all of that on fire for me again, and has taken
Yeah.
me to another level.
Yeah. So you hit on you really hit on it there with the last point, which is my follow up question was going to be how much did it shift when you became a father or a father and a husband? Did you look at it a very different way and see? Because I know for me, one of the things that I really think about when I get dressed, even when I'm not here in the showroom, but I'm taking my kids to the park or I'm going out to dinner with my family, that dressing well is still something that I think about in all aspects of my life. And one of the big reasons is because I'm a husband and father. Was that a motivating factor for you too?
100%. I think for me, the whole dressing thing comes down to seriousness, and how serious do you take yourself? How serious do you take the people you're around? And so thinking about that and thinking about, I'm big on like your station in life. That's been a big theme as I've been talking with people about this topic of dress. And it's something St. Francis de Sales gets into. That's something St. Jose Maria Escriva talked about. And so I think that as you raise your station in life, right, as you embrace your vocation, you're going to dress differently. Just the same way, I think. And I think there's a lot more similarities and overlap between, seminary and into the priesthood as, dating, engagement, marriage, and
Yeah.
fatherhood for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the deeper you get, the more serious you take yourself, right? When I was at Mount St. Mary's in college, I'm seeing these guys who were seminarians, and the first 2 years in philosophy, they were all wearing khakis and their Das and polo every day. And then it was once you got into theology, you start wearing your collar. And they didn't sometimes wear their collar. They didn't, wear their collar on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Luckily, the seminary was really good there, at least at the time. And they were wearing their collars every day. And so a lot of these priests, these young priests would go off and they would wear their collars every day. They would wear their cassocks. And I think that the majority of good priests do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say every person that doesn't is a bad priest, but almost, and not every collar wearer is a good priest, right? You're going to have some bad ones that do that as well, that kind of adhere to the rules. But yeah, their heart might be far from God. But I think by and large, it's a good sign of a good priest, or at least we're off to a good start. Just like, I think it's even stronger with nuns, right? We could get the habited nuns and non-habited nuns, but you start to see this allegiance to the truth, this willingness to die to yourself when you're willing to do that all the time. And so for me, that's kind of how I felt. I'm being ordained now, or I'm having this change in who I am as I received this sacrament of marriage. And so I had to take myself more seriously. I wasn't just providing for me anymore. It wasn't just about me anymore.
Yep.
And that helps to open your mind, I think, in general, right? Goes back to what I'm saying with being able to have this impactful moment with the priest next weekend for you, is you're dressing and you're establishing this reputation and this just kind of the stance in society, right? That's going to be impactful for other people, because you're thinking about, how am I going to dress to the park, or how am I going to dress to go to this gathering or this kid's birthday party, whatever it is. I've started doing the same thing now. And I just see that in men when I go up and I encourage them, or I tell our young parochial vicar, like, hey, that was a great homily. Like, it means more. And I want my words to mean something to people.
Yeah.
Especially to my family. Right.
Right. Of course. And it goes back to this theme. I certainly haven't, I didn't come up with the phrase, but I certainly believe it, that fathers have an obligation to dress well. And I believe the phrase was fathers have a moral obligation to dress well. And there's many different places or different ways that you can unpack that. I think, first of all, it communicates a level of respect, and you are no longer representing Nathan. You are representing Nathan and Emily and Jordan whenever people meet you.
And God, when we're out in the world, right? We represent Catholicism. Yeah.
Yes. And I think it also teaches your children, right? So it teaches your wife that you have a level of respect for her. One of the things that drives me absolutely nuts. I was just in Napa Valley, California, and I went out to dinner at a few nice restaurants with a good friend. And you see a couple go out to dinner, and the wife or girlfriend or fiance really tries. She's in a really nice dress. She's done her hair. She's in her makeup. She's wearing heels. And the guy's in like cargo shorts and Nikes and a Superman t-shirt. And
right.
I think,
which also happens to Mass.
It does. And we'll dive into that more. But by being a father and a husband and having that moral obligation to dress well, that doesn't happen. Like, if you take it as a moral responsibility that I'm going to dress well because I respect my wife, I respect myself, I respect the way that my children see me, something like that wouldn't happen. Something like that, your children, Jordan and my kids, look up to both of us as examples. Mm-hmm. And so when I get dressed every day, whether I'm working or not, I have to. That's something that I seriously consider. And it's not one of the things I often get from guys, especially within the church sphere, is, oh, well, that's vain. No, it's vain if you make it. And I'll let you dive deeper into this because I'm sure you have thoughts too. It's vain if you make it your entire personality. It's right. Vain if you oh my gosh, the collar of my shirt isn't perfect, so I need to go buy a different one, or I have to have such and such brand that's $500, or that. Like, there's a slippery slope to vanity, but saying that I want to do this because it represents my family, the church, my children, myself, and my career. Caring about how you look doesn't make you vain. Do you have thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that a lot of times we see people use pride and I think vanity is kind of an offshoot of pride. use pride as a way to be lazy and to avoid doing difficult things. You can see that in fitness. People do that. I've heard that before. Well, it's vain. I don't want, my body doesn't need to look a certain way and all this. It's like, okay, I think you just don't want to go to the gym, right? I think you just don't want to exercise. I think you just want to eat whatever you want, which actually can go into the other side, right? And a different form of sinfulness with gluttony and lack of discipline and all of that. The same can be true for like speaking or evangelizing, right? We hear all the time, "Oh, I'm not worthy," or "Who am I? I don't know all the answers to their questions," and things like that. So people just stay quiet. They're like, I'm not worth, getting up or sharing my faith in a conversation with somebody or with a coworker. There's all these ways that we just kind of say, "Well, I don't want to be prideful." We've made pride this. We recognize that pride is the root of all sin, but we can then I think twist it in our minds. I think the devil works a lot of times in our minds to twist it to say, okay, I'm actually going to prevent you from certain virtues because you're so afraid of being prideful. The same thing goes, I think, sometimes with wanting to be successful, providing for your family. We have so many guys that have just kind of detached from that, right? Like, oh, I don't need to make money. It's prideful. It's greedy. It's all these different things. And so they just say, well, I'm just going to, go be a youth minister for the next 20 years. And then I don't have to worry about that. I can just be holy and I'll be a good boy. And I don't have to worry about that. There's something with, I think, in masculinity, especially the masculine virtues, where we say, okay, I'm going to wrestle with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to enter into this virtue and actually trying to find the mean, recognizing that in searching for the mean, especially if I'm coming from a deficiency, I think a lot of, for anybody who doesn't know, we talk about Aristotle, virtues in the mean means you can think of things like, something like humility, right? Where you have on the excess, maybe pride and self, where you kind of have an inflated ego. But on the other side of that, there's kind of this self-deprecation where you hate yourself and you demean yourself and you don't even recognize the goodness that God sees in you, that you have in you through your baptism, through the grace of God, through being a son or daughter of God, right? So humility is in the middle. So if I'm coming from a place of deficiency where I am kind of self-deprecating and I don't think that I'm worthy of anything and I don't want to dress nicely because I'm not worth that or whatever it might be, it's masculine to say I'm going to strive to find the mean and the virtue, even though that risks going too far. Right.
Yes.
But a lot of people are willing to stay in one vice that they've deemed better than the other vice instead of kind of venturing out and trying to find the mean.
It's so much easier to stay in the first vice, which is sloth, and just being lazy or, not being intentional. And whether it's dressing well or getting in the gym or, earning more money, to find that mean, if you're starting from zero and the mean is, 50%, you're going to overshoot sometimes and you're going to overcorrect and you're going to care too much about how you look, or you're going to get in the gym and, okay, how can I get my abs to show? And like really focus on that. Or I'm, earning more money. I want to, drive an expensive sports car, and you're going to have those temptations. And if you like really enter into that arena and make it a goal to wrestle with that, you're going to find that middle ground, that 45 to 65%. You're going to find it. But that's better than sitting at zero and just saying, I'm just going to wear a graphic t-shirt all day long because I'm worried that going to 100 is going to make me vain.
Right. Yes. And you can, that's the other thing too. I think a lot of times with people, they don't recognize. I hear my friend Dakota Lane, he runs Dakota Lane Fitness, and he's awesome. We talk about this sometimes where people will come into him and they're, 80 pounds overweight or very, very out of shape. Say even I think a lot of Catholic people, you have this sometimes, men and women, where you're very, very scrawny, like just no strength. Right. And they're like, well, I don't want to get big and bulky like you, because Dakota's basically like a bodybuilder, And Outsour Mosey talks about this a lot. He's like, it takes you're never going to get to this point. He's like, even if you wanted to, you probably couldn't. And your fear of strength training, almost every woman will say this, right? And I just don't want to be jacked looking. It's like, you probably don't even have the discipline and the drive to push yourself to the point where you would get to looking jacked.
Correct.
Right. Correct. You don't just stumble into that. And the same thing can go with dressing nicer for mass, where you're not going to just, maybe if you feel like, oh, I'm just going to like wear the nicest suit and tie every single Sunday. If you're wearing shorts and flip flops, I'm all for you progressively getting to a better place. Right. That was my journey. Sure. If you want to jump ahead, I think that you can. I don't think that it's vain. I don't think you're going to have any problems with that. But even if you come to me and say, okay, I'm with you on the pants, I'll wear pants and a polo. To me, that is unfathomably better, right? Than flip
Unbelievable.
flops and shorts. It
Unbelievable.
is so much better. And then maybe you say, okay, I'm going to wear something like I'm wearing today, where I've got on pants and a button down shirt, a dress shirt.
Yep.
Great. You're making progress in the right direction. And then you throw a sports jacket on it. Maybe eventually then you're getting to a suit and tie. Maybe
Yep.
you get to a suit and tie every Sunday.
Yep.
But you don't have to jump straight into. I'm telling you, there's not you have to be a ridiculous human being if you start wearing pants and a polo to mass to feel like you're going to start judging the hearts and souls of other people that are around you. And you're going to become this vain a-hole. That's it. That's an insane jump. You have to be just a ridiculous human. If that is the case, something else is seriously wrong, I think, inside.
We're going to talk about this more, just some general advice for Catholic guys. But yes, it is very real to overcorrect, to think that, okay, I don't take myself seriously now in how I dress. Therefore, I need to look like Peaky Blinders every Sunday. And that's a huge overcorrection. And there is a middle ground there where you can look great and carry yourself with respect and dignity, but you don't look like a movie character. And on the note of fitness, it goes hand in hand with dressing well as well. I had the same experience. Shout out to Sam Nessel, who's a Catholic trainer. He's on Instagram. He is my trainer, and I told him the same thing. Like, I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, and he's like, well, in order for me to be a bodybuilder, I spent like 12 hours a day in the gym, and I don't have time for that. So and I don't eat anything you eat. Correct. And I like, life is not just chicken and plain rice. So you're never going to get there. And it goes to the exact same for guys with dressing well. You, like most husbands, fathers, or even single Catholic men, like, there isn't enough time in the day or the means to just shop nonstop for expensive things. Like, it's making those incremental changes to make things better, just like going to the gym. For sure. I want to close this part out before we get to some of the practical stuff with this, just a little bit of St. Francis de Sales. So he talks about three main things, which we're going to talk about today when it comes to appearance, what he calls propriety in dress. He says material, fashion, and cleanliness are the big three. He encourages us, he says, material and fashion of clothes can change in different ways and different occasions, right? But his big thing is that you should never be disorderly or unclean. He says, study to be neat, let nothing about you be slovenly or disorderly. And one of my favorite parts here, I'm reading this in the midst, bro. Like, I've been going through this like chapter by chapter this year. I'm reading this in the midst of everything I'm talking about. It was such like a great sign from the Lord, I feel like. Or I'm talking about this on social media, arguing with men and women about dressing for mass, and he gets into this. And this is something I think is really important. If we're going to mass, of course, but then even, if we're going on a double date with our wives to a restaurant, you talked about this with date nights, and even just you're going to different events. And Jordan Peters talks about this when people go to a lot of his events. He sees a lot of people in suit and ties and dresses and things. But St. Francis hits on this really well. He says, it's an affront to those with whom you associate to be unsuitably dressed, but avoid all conceits, vanities, finery, and affectation. Adhere as far as possible to modesty and simplicity, which doubtless are the best ornaments of beauty. He says, St. Peter admonishes women not to adorn themselves with plaiting in the hair and putting on of apparel, and such follies in men are altogether disgusting. I think that gets into a lot of, sometimes you can dabble in like earrings and like excessive jewelry in men and things like that, which we could talk a little bit about that too. Absolutely. He said, I would have my spiritual children always be suitably attired. He says everyone should dress according to his station, which is what St. Louis talked about. And he says, so that wise men may not say, you are too fine, nor the young, you are too homely. And so he basically talks about, he references St. Louis, King of France a lot with this, where he says, I'm the King of France. He's like, it would not be right for me to be dressed like a peasant. And he says that it wouldn't be right for a husband and father to be dressed like a boy, right? And I think just talking about that and dressing in different stations where it doesn't have to be you're dressing like Deion Sanders, right? To like the ESPYs. Where you are just trying to draw attention to yourself and be flashy. Right. Just wearing nice clothes, being clean, having yourself put together. I think haircuts even go into this, right? Where it's not even just about your clothing sometimes. But I went to a wedding on Saturday, man, and I just remember seeing this guy there that was
I was like, I don't know if my man's got a haircut this quarter, right? Like it's been a hot minute. And to me, that's just so wild. Especially, I know that sometimes that could be the black and me. We used to get our haircut back in high school, like every week. You would get in a lineup, and then the next week you get your haircut. And so that could be a little bit excessive. But guys, at least once a month.
Yes.
And if not that, then you at least have to have your wife like cleaning up your neck. I should not be able to see a straight line from the back of your head down to what I can only assume is a ton of back hair straight through the collar, right? Like that is to get you some clippers for $20 and just have your wife just kind of clean that up is not going to break the bank.
It's grooming goes hand in hand with dressing well. I wanted to touch on one of those what DeSales says there. About being suitably dressed, because this will be the question that I think is actually the crux of the issue when it comes to mass, right? So the way I was raised, suitably dressed is Jesus will take me as I am, right? So suitably dressed is having clothes on at all to some people, right?
Yep.
So what is suitably dressed for mass in Nathan Crankfield's opinion? Because this is where you'll get some people who argue at this point of what is suitably dressed.
Absolutely. One of my favorite comments and conversations I got into with a guy who I knew was like a big shorts to mask guy. He's been a youth minister for a long time here in Denver, and I love him. Good friend of mine, but I knew we didn't see eye to eye on this issue. He was telling me how he goes suit and tie for Easter and Christmas, but they typically will do like shorts and a polo to Sunday mass. Now, to me, this points at, gets to the heart of this question. I said, I think the issue that I take with that is you see theologically a much larger jump between an ordinary Sunday mass or, Sunday and ordinary time to Christmas and Easter, right? Like that, the delta, the gap that you have, because to me, the gap between shorts and a polo, which is golf course attire, to suit and tie, which is wedding, funeral, business interview, like some of the most important days in either your life or other people's lives.
Yep.
You're seeing a huge jump. And to me, the jump is not that big, right? So that's why I like to go sports jacket and, dress shirt to Sunday mass. And then I go suit and tie for Christmas and Easter. And I get the people who say, look, we do just suit and tie every Sunday. But I think recognizing where we're at, what we're doing, right? The people that we're coming together with, and even the priests. Like, I like to see the priests. I don't like to see ugly. Like, I donate. If my pastor didn't have any nice, now I'm really bad at, the alb, or I don't know, I'm not good at the language, but the clothing the priest wears for mass, like I will donate in order to get some nicer things, because I just like it. I think it's nice when they're wearing nice things, just like I like being in a beautiful church building. Right. And so I think there's just something to that. So for me, my bare minimum is a collar and pants and dress shoes. I think that those should be the things. I don't think that you should wear sneakers to mass. I don't think that you should wear shorts to mass. I definitely don't think we should see your feet at mass as a man. And I think you should always wear a collar. To me, that's something that especially that's so universal. I think it's universal for time of year. I think it's universal for heat or anything like that, for temperature. I think it's universal for every single human, basically. That's not, I mean, even most homeless people have a collared shirt, right? So this idea that, it's, you have to have money, you don't. Every single one of you owns one, because when you go golfing or do these other things, you wear it, right? You go to the country club, you don't show up in a t-shirt. So why not to mass? So that's my absolute minimum.
Part of your week. The most important thing that you have going on that week, which is more important than your tea time. You're
absolutely,
you're not going to put a collar on. Yeah, I agree with you. My bare minimum is a collar. I tend to go long sleeve, and then slacks or chinos. I try to avoid jeans, and then a nice shoe, either really like nice and clean pair of boots or a dress shoe. That is my bare minimum. But most Sundays, because we attend the traditional Latin mass, I'm in jacket, shirt, tie.
Yeah, I love it. I also encourage people to wear your best outfit of the week. Right now, if you're going to a wedding or something, to me, like I went to a wedding, and so I wore a suit and tie that day. It might be a little bit different because, like I said, I usually go sports jacket, dress shirt. But generally speaking, my general attire is something like this. Or I wear a lot of polos to work and things because, honestly, in my work, working for a tech startup, working at Hallow, like when I go to our quarterlies and things in person, I'm usually, people are like, why are you dressed up? Yeah, exactly. And so that's why for me, it's kind of like that is elevated. But I say somebody like you who's wearing a suit and tie, I think it makes sense that you would continue to do that. You probably own a number of suits and ties. But I think for people who don't, if you only own one suit and tie and you're wearing a t-shirt to work every day and you're working at some tech startup, then I think going, button down, chinos, dress pants, slacks, and dress shoes to you will feel elevated. And to me, that goes into like the psychological aspect of what we're talking about, of I'm showing up to something different. I'm showing up more intentionally. This is the best part of my week. This is elevated. I think it helps with all that. So let's talk about building this out. So let's say I am that guy. I work for a tech startup, Nathan. You work at Shepherd's. You're a co-founder at a clothing company. I'm starting out, man. I have my black suit, that I just owned for a while because of funerals and what have you. But where do I begin from here? How do I start?
Yeah, so obviously the first step is work with what you have. I think that if you have a black suit, if you have a couple of dress shirts and a couple of pairs of chinos that are left over from college, that is, work with what you have. If you especially you don't have the means to, go out and spend a bunch of money on clothing, it is better to, dress up with what you have. But I'll run through kind of some of my generic guidelines for how you can kind of go from, that when we talk about the delta, from going from zero and ending up finding that mean. The first thing is that context is really key. Dressing up does not mean that you're well dressed, and I know that for a lot of guys, this is where a lot of that overcorrection happens. You think that, okay, I need to start dressing well, so I need to go to the store or go thrift a tweed blazer and wear a fedora. And it's like, no. Like, just because you have to understand the circumstances. Just like you wouldn't wear a swimsuit to mass, the same, you wouldn't wear a 3-piece suit to go on a beach holiday with your family. So you have to understand context. When I take my kids to the park, I'm not wearing a suit, but when I tell you what I'm not wearing gym shorts. I'm not wearing a Nike t-shirt and flip-flops. It's a nice pair of, khaki, tan shorts. Maybe it's a better fitting t-shirt that's clean, or a polo shirt, not a whole lot of logos, no Superman logo, no sports team, just keep it nice and simple, and a nice clean pair of shoes that can be boat shoes. But I try to make sure that my toes are covered, right? A nice pair of boat shoes, a nice pair of clean sneakers. Don't wear the same shoes that you wear to the gym everywhere. Like, get a nice pair of shoes. that I see this all the time, and it's like,
for sure.
Guys have one pair of shoes because guys are simple. Guys don't want to shop. It's like, okay, I'm going to buy my Nike Flyknit racers. I'm going to wear them to the gym. I'm going to wear them to work. I'm going to wear them everywhere, and they're going to get dirty, and I don't care. And it's like, you should have a couple of nice pairs of shoes. When it comes to building your outfit, or dressing well, shoes are so important. And for the guys who are listening who are single, or the guys who are married, it is the first thing that women look at, because your shoes will tell a woman, do you spend money on nice things? Do you have money? Do you take yourself seriously? Can you, do you dress to the correct level of formality, right? If you're going on a date and a girl's a +1 and you're going to a wedding and you're wearing Jordans and everyone else is wearing wearing suits, you're communicating to your date that you don't understand context, that you don't understand formality, that you don't take this date seriously.
Or the wedding. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So,
or mass. You don't take mass seriously.
100%. And so having a nice pair of shoes, or a couple nice pairs of shoes, is very important. I would much rather, and I say this as someone who is a co-founder of a suit company, I would much rather you have a nicer pair of shoes than the suit that you're wearing, than having a really expensive suit and buying your dress shoes at Walmart. Like, it makes a huge difference. And whether you're married, single, wherever you are in life, it gets respect from the significant other, your wife, dating partner, etc. Very important.
Absolutely. I think one thing you hit on there that, and I don't want to stray too far into this because I want to stay on the practicals, but you just
Yeah,
reminded me of this. And one of the things, this is something that, do you follow Die Workwear on Twitter?
of course.
I was just
Yeah.
talking with a friend about him the other day. Super liberal for those out there. I always like to give that caveat. He's super liberal, so he's just going to roast Republicans. But the insights this man gives on clothing is awesome. But this is one of the things he talks about is that a lot of guys now feel like it's really feminine or it's gay to like to care about what you wear or to do certain things. And he'll show these old pictures of like John Wayne and just like very masculine men who just dress nicely. And I think it's really important to recognize that it's, to me, it does feel almost like this kind of intentionality, this caring about things, the things being nice. There's a reason why women are more drawn to it, and I think it does. It's more natural for women because I think it kind of goes into what we would consider more feminine virtues, but they're virtues nonetheless. And one of the ways I always kind of describe for people, just like we want our wives to be courageous and strong and fortuitous, right, and to practice the virtue of fortitude, which we consider masculine virtues. You don't become less masculine if you excel in what we consider more feminine virtues, right? We're
Mhm.
called to be gentle with our children. We're called to be kind to people, things that we would consider more feminine virtues. Father Chase Hilderbrink, one of my favorite priests in the world, says that they're actually two different scales. They're not a spectrum where you have masculine on one side and feminine on the other side. We're called to grow in virtue. And so even the feminine virtues, when we grow in those, it doesn't have to inherently make us less masculine, right? You don't have to have less courage, less strength, less boldness because you're starting to care about some of these things, right? So I just wanted to hit on that for a second because you made me think of it. So,
You nailed it with the John Wayne point. For, I hear this a lot as guys are like, well, I don't care. Men shouldn't care what they look like. Well, you look back through history. You look at, Native American tribes. Do you think when those guys put on war paint that they, you know, like, like those guys are doing that because there is a purpose to the way that they look. It's to intimidate their enemy. It's to symbolize their rank or their level of experience. You look at the pictures of um, the paratroopers on D-Day. Those guys, shave mohawks into their head and like you really care. Like they're out there with a straight razor, cutting their hair, applying their war paint a very specific way. Like men have always cared. It's just that men use the way that they dress as a way to command or to demand respect, and to show self mastery and dignity. Whereas women, women dress for very different purposes. They're it's to show femininity, the ability to have children. Like women and men dress for very different purposes. But to say that men don't care, have never cared, and shouldn't care is not true at all.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's really big. And that's something I talk about a lot with this topic is men love uniformed
Yep.
professions, right? We're always drawn to that. Why? Because we recognize that there's something to that when you put on that police uniform. I'll never forget the first time putting on my Army uniform. And I remember the last day I wore it
Yep.
and just how I felt. It was awesome. So let's talk about what you start to buy. So I know you have some thoughts on dress shirts.
Yep.
And once we get past, I love the idea of the nice shoes. But as we move past that into the actual clothing, do you like I'd love to know your thoughts, and maybe people can look this up, or I might even try to add it in here afterwards. But the Steve Harvey 5 suits approach, you've probably seen this TikToker reel where he says each man needs 5 suits. Do you have any thoughts on that, or where do you begin buying suits and dress shirts?
Yeah. So on the Steve Harvey note, I think it's one of the things that he's alluding to is purchasing pieces that are very versatile.
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
I think that's great. I think it allows you. That's one of my approaches when I do consults here at Shepherd's is helping guys figure out how to get a lot of wear out of what they spend, rather than just taking a guy for a ride and picking out items that are only go with one shirt or one pair of pants, which is very common in my industry. It's very common where guys will. A tailor or clothier will pick out only one shirt and they'll say, "This is the shirt that you wear with this jacket." And guys listen to them because guys don't know what they're doing or don't have the confidence to pair things, and it's just a way to easily upsell. Whereas my approach is finding the absolute most that you can get out of your clothing. I think where the Steve Harvey advice and that reel can lead to some trouble is, and this is one of my points that we'll talk about, is going to Joseph A. Banks and buying a blue suit, a gray suit, a brown suit, a khaki suit, and a black suit. I think were his 5. And if you get them all in a very shiny suit fabric, if you break those apart, it it looks off. And that's one of my points is further down this conversation is don't wear your blue suit jacket as a sport coat, because there is one, it will wear differently than the pants. So then when you dry clean it, one will fade before the other one. And then also because a suit jacket is inherently more shiny because it's more formal, it just looks like you're like someone can see it. And even if someone doesn't know enough about, like a lot about clothing the way I do, someone will be able to say like that, it looks off. It just looks funny. And I know that you and I had this conversation when you visited Shepherd's, was finding materials and fabrics that are, softer, a little bit more matte. We'll end up going with more items because it looks like it's supposed to. It looks like it's a sports jacket rather than being an orphaned part of a suit. Some other points. One last note on shoes. Avoid the big kind of bulbous square-toed shoes. I know you'll see this all over the internet, but I still see guys wearing them. They look terrible. They look cheap. They don't do anything for your figure or anything like that. Avoid those. And then lastly, a lot of guys do this one. Avoid dress shoes or wannabe dress shoes with the sneaker sole. The Cole Haan.
Preach it.
It's you're trying to do, like, you're trying to dress up, but you're not trying to get all the way there. I understand that they feel like tennis shoes, but come on, you don't need any more comfort in your life. You wear tennis shoes every day of the week. Get a pair of real dress shoes with a real like shape and leather sole to them. They look better. They don't look like they're like they're going halfway. The Cole Haan tennis shoe, dress shoe thing is I hate them with a burning passion. So
I love it.
Yeah, those are.
I believe it. Yeah, I think to me, especially with a suit, man, I don't even like to wear. I've worn it. I started because somebody gave me a pair of those for Christmas, and I like to wear them, but I started wearing them with the sports jacket, and I was like, I don't know if I like this look, and then I went back to kind of my just regular dress shoes, and I was like, this is definitely the move. I think for guys like me who are wearing, like, if you're doing the kind of business casual for the work week and you're wearing 10 hours a day, whatever, you're walking in the city, I think that's where it makes sense. But when you're talking Sunday mass, you're like really going, you're kind of elevating, you're trying to look nicer. It really, really brings it down. You see it all the time. Like, I always think about the NBA. I don't know if you watch NBA at all, but NBA on TNT, those guys, or like Stephen A. Smith, these guys do it all the time. I'm like, stop wearing sneakers with your suit. You guys look so good, and then your sneakers look ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. And it's what it symbolizes more than anything is that I can't be even remotely 1% uncomfortable for an hour, half, however long you're on TV or they're at mass. And your natural instinct is the exact instinct that I get when I see guys wearing them is like something just feels off. When I wear a sport coat with these, and I have a very good friend, and he's got 3 or 4 pairs of them, and he works in tech, and he's in Lululemon slacks and a polo every day. That's fine, because then you are communicating that you're doing this, like, kind of dress up, kind of dress down, like that can work. But with a really nice suit, I see guys wearing them on their wedding day, and it's like, dude, like you get a really beautiful suit, and then you wear these shoes that are like you want to go run a marathon. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So on shirts, suits, and jackets. So I'm going to make this, like, this is very easy. Your first 10 shirts should be white, light blue, or some sort of mix. They can have a small check. They can have a small stripe. This, I see this too. Guys will go to Macy's. They'll go to Banana Republic, and they'll see like a shirt that's red. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, that'll get me some attention. And it's like, if it's going to get you attention, you don't want that.
That's not the one.
No, like, the shirt is supposed to be really the blank canvas for everything that you wear over it. The tie that you wear, the jacket that you wear, and it should be something that's really, non-offensive. And it honestly, it makes life easier. You can go into your closet, blindfold yourself, and grab something, and it will work with every jacket, every pair of pants that you have, if you stick to white and blue. And this is the exact advice that I give people in my day job as well. Guys come in and they're like, I want to do a red stripe, purple check crate, and I'm like your first 10 should be white or blue. And that is, especially if you're going to get really nice shirts that are made to fit you really well. then even more all the more the reason that you should get something that's very simple, so that way when you wear it all the time, it looks really good. It's made to fit you. It should be very simple, not not super offensive. Suits. My general advice, if you're starting from scratch or you're going to get what's next, I think you should get a medium to charcoal gray suit. And the reason why, because everybody out there wears navy, everybody out there wears royal blue. You see it at people's weddings, like everyone wants to wear navy, and I get it. Like navy's a great color, and a lot of guys love blue. If your wardrobe build, like if you're gonna have one suit, that's totally fine. But if you're gonna build a wardrobe to where you got jackets to wear to different events or to networking or on a date, charcoal gray suit, and then if you buy a navy sports jacket, now you have a navy jacket to wear with the charcoal pants. You got a navy jacket to wear with jeans on a date. You've got a navy jacket to wear with your tan cotton chinos. You have a lot more, and then you mix in 5 or 6 shirts. You have a lot more options there than I'm going to buy one suit, and I don't recommend taking the navy suit jacket and wearing it as a sport coat. So sticking to those kind of pillars, you'll find that you'll have a lot more to wear for the various events throughout life.
Yeah, I think that's so good too, because to me, the gray suit is so much more versatile. You can wear that to a funeral and be appropriate. You can also wear it to a wedding, right? Where I feel like the black, you can wear a suit to a wedding, I think, but I think it fits a little bit different. I think of more like gray navy to a wedding. I think more of gray and black to a funeral. And so, yeah, I think that's a great starting point for a lot of guys.
My general advice is most guys should not have a black suit. Black is really formal. That's why we use black in tuxedos, and so oftentimes it's really tough to wear it and then try to dress it down without looking like a mobster. So I generally recommend guys stick with navy and gray for their first two, and then really build from there. I talk about colors and fabrics and things like that. The most you can't overlook fit. Your clothes have to fit before you go to the store and buy anything. Look at the clothes that you have, the chinos you have, the jeans that you're wearing. Make sure your pants aren't too long. They're not too baggy. Find things that flatter your body. And newsflash, not everything has to be slim fit. There's a lot of guys who are built like you. There's a lot of guys built like you and me, and they're like, "Hey, man, I wear skinny fit." I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't. Like you're stuffed in there like a sausage. Like you need to wear a regular fit or a straight fit, something that flatters your body. Just like when we talk about women and modesty, men have to be modest at as well. And stuffing yourself in a slim fit T-shirt because you think you're going to show off your muscles. Well, there's a level of modesty as well. Like you should strike a balance between something that flatters you and something that looks a little too much. So that's my note on fit. Buy clothes that fit. Your pants should not be puddling on top of your shoe. I see that all the time as well. Get your pants hemmed so they hit your shoe or they break once on top of your shoe. Don't wear these long puddling messes because again, it shows that you care about your appearance. Otherwise it just looks sloppy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the tightness too, for me, this is something that I think also shifted for me in the last year or two. Was I had so many clothes that I went out and bought a bunch of like nice clothes. I got like 2 sports jackets, I think 2 suits when I finished Ranger School. And because I had like all this money that I'd saved up, and that was actually what I spent all my money on pretty much, and loved wearing them. I was wearing them consistently. But then I went on deployment, and came back from deployment 20 pounds heavier than I went into Ranger School, right? Mostly, I was jacked, right? Like I was at peak strength for sure of my life, and everything was fitting a little tighter. And then I got out of the Army and gained like another 5 to 10 pounds. And it wasn't as, swole as I once was. And then I tore my Achilles and got up, at that point I was like 45 pounds heavier than I went into Ranger school. And so at that point, like everything was just pretty tight. And so finally I started to invest into things that fit me a lot better. And that was just a huge shift for me, was just realizing like, oh, I forgot how much I like wearing these things when they fit well, and then kind of met in the middle where I started to lose weight again, brought myself down about 25 pounds. And so some of the old things were fitting again. And so I was able to fit into, like, this shirt was one of the shirts I think I bought, post Ranger school.
Yeah.
Which for a while was just pretty tight. And when things are tight, especially pants for me, I know sometimes women wear like really tight pants. I don't know how they do it, but I just like can't do it when I'm just not comfortable in tight pants. I don't like feeling like things are really tight, especially if I do have a belly, feeling like things are just like, I look like a pregnant woman where it's just kind of pushing out at the midsection. That is not, I'm not trying to rock maternity clothes. So that'll keep me dressing down. Very casual, because an extra large t-shirt fits a lot easier and I don't have to tuck it in than some of these other things. And so I think that's where fitness kind of goes into this, but then obviously fit and wearing the right size is really big. Because for so long too, I was like, oh, I'm a 42 regular. That's what I used to be for a jacket. And now if I'm buying one off the rack, I buy a 46 and then I can get it tailored a little bit, but it just fits so much nicer. Butting it in the middle is so much easier. My shoulders aren't, because I have big shoulders, like you're saying. And so like, I don't feel like I can't lift my arms up above, and I'm like, I don't need to be doing pull-ups, but at the same time, I don't like driving shouldn't be like, I'm going to rip the suit,
Yeah, to all the listeners out there, I've had the pleasure to make a few jackets for Nathan. And Nathan is 46, and he's absolutely maxed out the shoulder allowance. So it's safe to say, my boy has some traps. Like he is jacked. So
the traps are my strength, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
but they hurt me on the clothing.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Yeah, for sure. Casual clothing, like day to day. Most of us, work business casual, going out on a first date to grab coffee is not a 3-piece suit. So what should guys wear? Like, how do you ditch the basketball shorts when you're going out in public? How do you ditch the Lululemon athleisure, right? It's very simple. For pants, dark jeans, tan, or like a lighter pair, or even a gray pair of chinos. You can get them at J. Crew, Banana Republic, Old Navy, an outlet, Polo outlet, wherever your budget allows. All of these companies sell these types of pants. Dark jeans because they're more dressy, and then chinos because they're soft, they're very comfortable, easy just to kind of run around in. And then for shirts, I would recommend polo shirts. In general, and this is a point I'll hit on a little bit more. I would stay away from as much of the polyester, like golf polos. I think, again, it just looks off. I think natural materials that have a very natural sheen, very natural texture and color palette to them look better. So yeah, some short sleeve, long sleeve, blue, gray, burgundy, even dark green polo shirts are all great. In the hot, the summer months, wear khaki shorts. Don't wear them past your knee. Like, get some flattering ones that hit like right above your knee, not big and baggy. Again, khaki, navy, gray.
They also don't have to be 4 inches.
Right. Correct.
Yes. That's also a trend where your t-shirt's damn near like you look like a high school girl coming from soccer practice, where your shirt is hitting the end of your shorts as a man.
No. So you find things that flatter the body, and most guys, regardless of height, if you find a short that hits like right above your knee and it's not too baggy, that's a good way to go. And the same colors and styles go in the cold months. Sweaters,
right.
Find things that are pretty neutral. You'll find that if you buy a navy polo shirt, you can wear it with your gray pants, your blue jeans, your khaki pants, and you add a burgundy polo, exact same colors. Like, you will find that if you add colors that are versatile, if you don't go out there and buy orange and yellow and crazy stuff, you will actually get a lot more use out of your clothing. So just one step up, go from gym shorts to some really nice, just natural material, clean, no logos. It doesn't have to say Gucci across the front. Just keep it simple. And that looks so much better. On the note of one other note that drives me nuts. If you're wearing pants to mass or you're wearing a suit, get a few pairs of really nice, solid dress socks that match the pants that you're wearing. So if you're wearing a navy suit, you should have navy socks. Ditch the goofy socks, ditch the polka dots and the stripes and the flowers and all that stuff. Like we're all grown men. You don't need to be unique and show off. Like, look how ironic I am with the socks that I'm wearing. No, just wear plain socks and it'll look much better. And also, your white Nike socks, your black Nike socks that you wear to the gym, don't wear those with a suit. Like, come on, like get some socks. Buy 3 pairs, and that'll get you through with wash. That'll get you through a month's worth of mass. If that's the only occasion you have to dress up.
Yep. And those are things too you can find. I mean, you can get those at Target, right? Yeah. Like Target's got some good options there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of good options. Honestly, I like a lot of I don't know why I'm blanking on their brand they have. Goodfellow. Yeah, I think a lot of their stuff is decent. Some of their just like solid colored T-shirts that can go with some things that just are nicer than your graphic T-shirts. Some button downs. I've got some nice shirts and stuff there. Yeah, some very affordable things.
The principles of what I'm saying remain the same regardless of like I am not and I want everyone to hear me. I'm not advocating you go out and drop thousands of dollars. I'm saying find what works. Obviously, and this is my next point is buy the nicest that you can afford. But if you follow these principles, you will look better and you will find that you have a lot more to wear than going into your closet and feeling like you have nothing. And it's this perpetual cycle of I buy one thing and it doesn't go with anything, so then I buy another thing. If you stick to these principles, you'll find that you have a lot to wear. Which rolls right into my next point. Buy the nicest that you can afford, or buy quality, buy once, cry once, whatever the phrase is. But in general, ditch throwaway culture. I think also as Catholics, I think we all know that when you buy something from H&M or places like this, you're supporting child labor. You're supporting unfair labor practices for adults.
Yep.
I think that's something that a lot of people overlook because it works for me, it fits my budget, and I don't have to think about it because I don't see those people. I've had the privilege of spending a lot of time in factories where clothing is made, and I've seen good and bad. I think it's something that Catholics, if we're striving for virtue, it's one of the virtues that we should, or one of the things that we should seriously consider is when we're buying things, how are people treated? So again, you don't need to go to Savile Row and get a bespoke suit for $7,000, but also if you go to H&M, you're going to support child labor. And that's not great. So.
Absolutely. I love it, man.
Yeah. Last few, learn a little bit about color theory, and I am by no means an expert, but there's blogs on the webs, blogs out there, blogs on the internet, where you can learn a little bit about your skin complexion, color of your hair, and what colors look good on you. In general, guys of my complexion, very fair skin, blonde to brown hair, should wear cooler toned colors. So for me, dark browns, dark blues, dark grays, dark greens, all look good on me. Really, really orange or really bright reds, make my face look very red, and that doesn't compliment me. And then also on the flip side, wearing if I wore a suit that was white, it would wash me out. So finding a few things about color theory and the colors that work for you will help you make a good buying decision, because you can wear stuff that I can't wear because of your skin complexion, and vice versa. So doing a little bit of research will help you, find colors that will really look good on you. Don't dry clean too often. I
thought that was an interesting one. Talk to me about frequency.
All the time. A guy will pick up a beautiful suit and he'll go, okay, I'm going to take this to the dry cleaner before my wedding. And it's like, why? And here's the truth. So dry cleaners use very harsh abrasive chemicals to get those stains out. Whether or not you're getting your suit pressed or you spill tomato sauce on it, they use the exact same process, exact same chemicals. So you have this beautiful suit or a nice garment. A suit should have body, it should have shape, it should follow the form and the contours of your body. And when you take it in there for a press, they're gonna treat your suit the same way they treat that H&M suit, and they're gonna lay it down and put a bunch of heat and pressure on it and press the crap out of it, and use harsh chemicals. And over time, it's gonna make your suit fade. It's gonna make it lose its shape. And if you buy cheap suits, it's gonna cause the inner material to bubble and crack, and it's not great for long-term use. So my principle and what we tell guys here at Shepherd's is the two S's: stain or stink. So if you spill wine on your suit or tomato sauce, yes, go get it dry cleaned, and always take the pants with the jacket. If you take them separate, then the pants will fade, and the jacket, the suit will eventually not look like a suit. So even if you spill on your pants, take the jacket too, have it all dry cleaned. Same with stink. If you just can't get the odor out, then go get it dry cleaned. But steam is a miracle worker for natural garments. So suits that are made of wool, if you hang it up in your bathroom, and you run the shower and you turn the shower fan off for 10, 15 minutes, you'll find that a lot of the odor is gone. You can also use plain, unflavored, or low sugar plain white vodka and spritz it on it and leave it outside. That'll also help to deodorize it. I enjoy a cigar from time to time, and I'll go home and hang up I come home and I stink, and I'll come home and hang up my suit in the bathroom, run the shower for 15 minutes, and you let it air out and the smell goes away. So
Wow.
that is in general the way to take care of a really, really nice garment. Because I would hate for guys to pony up and spend money on something really nice and then have someone else ruin it. That's never fun. Last few. Don't wear your suit jacket as a sport coat. In general, if you have a suit jacket like what I'm wearing today, a little bit of a sheen, a little bit more dressy, if you try to wear it as a sport coat,
the pockets are different.
Yep, it's just going to look off. It's going to look like you have nothing else to wear. You grabbed, and you know what? Maybe you don't. But then you should go and get, a pretty inexpensive sport coat. Go thrift shopping. Go to a Target, Old Navy, Banana Republic. Get something.
Nordstrom Rack, like some of those places, Macy's. You can do $100 to $200. I found sports jackets that I love, and that can be about timing, right? So I think if you're building this out, you're looking on those things, not obsessively, but once a month you're checking. July 4th, Memorial Day, Black Friday, like you're hitting those like big deals hard, and then asking for what I asked for. If my birthday comes up, I'd like a Nordstrom gift card, right? Like I just asked for gift cards to these places too. Banana Republic.
Absolutely. Yep. It's all a process. It doesn't have to be all done tomorrow. Take your time and try to get things that are nicer rather than just like, hey, I need 10 dress shirts. I'm just going to go to H&M. No, just take your time, buy things on sale, and you'll buy much nicer things that last longer.
Yep. Exactly.
Here's the one that Nathan and I are both going to agree on, and where Nathan gets a lot of flack, or did get a lot of flack on social media. Wear pants to mass, on serious dates, and on flights. So in the suit world, a three-piece suit where you're wearing a vest that covers up your waist is more formal than the exact same suit that's a two-piece suit. There is the clothing rules apply, that the more of your body that's covered, the more formal it is. So when you are going to mass, the most important part of your week, the source and summit of our faith, wearing pants is a sign of respect. It's a sign of modesty. It's a sign of you are covering up more of your body, which makes what you're wearing more formal. I say the same thing on dates. Like, okay, it's one thing if you guys are going to go hiking. But if you're going to go to a nice restaurant, or you're going to go walk around the little downtown wherever you live, try to wear pants. It shows that you are taking this date more seriously. It's more respectful. It's more modest than wearing shorts. And then flights. Again, the same things apply: respect, modesty, discipline. If you just put forth a little bit more effort and you wear chinos or dark jeans and a polo shirt rather than pajamas, essentially, you might get upgraded. People will treat you more respectfully if you have an issue, if you've lost your baggage. I can't tell you how many times I don't always wear a suit when I fly for business, but I always wear slacks and a long sleeve polo or slacks and a shirt and a jacket. The number of times that you were treated much more respectfully. You also never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
So just, and on the church thing, just to circle back to it before I let you riff on it, this is the most important part of your week. So if you're going to wear pants to the country club, if you're going to wear pants on a date with your wife, those are very important. Those are fun. But like mass is the most important part of your week. Wear pants. Like that is, I will die on that hill.
Absolutely. We're going to die together. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I love
absolutely.
it, man. I love it. That's all good. And then I think the last thing I wanted to hear you touch on was the accessories. This was something that was big for me recently. So I've been upgrading, especially in the sports jacket, because I was a big violator of this. I'm talking 6 months ago. Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm.
I have my nice. I don't think I was when I got my shepherd's jacket. I'd stopped doing it already. But imagine that you're wearing a nice sports jacket. You're looking fresh. You got your shoes right. Your belt's matching your shoes. Your socks are matching your pants. Everything's on, and then you got this blue Apple Watch popping out from your wrist. Goofy.
Yeah, my last two are just some small accessory things. On the watch note, again, you can spend the price of a mortgage on a watch, and I'm not advocating for that. But I think what the Apple Watch misses is we're already in a world where there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of interruption, and I try when I'm on a date with my wife to put my phone away. Or when you're in mass, you obviously put your phone in your pocket or you leave it in the car. And then you got something else that's just buzzing at you. Like it's getting alerts and notifications and the screen's lighting up. And we're already in a world that's, extremely, we struggle with attention as is. And I think that a really nice, clean watch shows, again, it communicates these subconscious messages of, I value my time. I'm punctual, and it looks much better with a dressed up professional outfit than an Apple Watch does. Nothing against them, but if you can even just like watches don't have to be expensive. A Timex at Target's like $30. Just get a really simple analog watch, and I think it'll you will feel better. You'll feel less distracted. And then lastly, your bag. If you are still going to work and you're carrying the same bag that you carried in college, the Patagonia or a Nike bag, get an adult grown-up bag. Again, you don't have to spend thousands. You can carry a briefcase. You can carry a nice leather backpack, but get something that at least communicates that I'm an adult, and with everything that I'm doing it with intentionality and with purpose, and I'm not just carrying the same thing that I've carried since I was 18. So that's my simple, my
I love it.
Yeah, I'll let you go anywhere from here. If you got anything you wanted to touch on with those, or you want to do a rapid fire on pop culture stuff, I'll let you kind of wrap this one up.
No, that's beautiful, man. We'll have to have you back because I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things, but we're out of time for today. But man, that was so good and so helpful. I appreciate you sharing a lot of the insights there and the practical things. Because again, like we talked about before we recorded, that I think a lot of times in the church, especially when it comes to men, we talk about a lot of different things that we need to do, how we ought to live, the outcomes we ought to create, but we don't actually give men a roadmap on how to get there and actually give them some advice and insights on that. So I thought that was really important to do, and you're the man to do it with. So I appreciate your time today and all that you do. I invite people to check out wearshepherds.com. We'll obviously keep that linked and everything. And if people want to visit you or holler at you, they can do that there on the website. Would that be the best place?
Yeah, that's a great place to check out Shepherds. You can also, I believe I'm public on Instagram at Nathaniel J. Price. If there's any guys who genuinely just want advice or, hey, I'm out shopping, I'm considering this, I am always happy to, and I'm always available to give advice or give inputs because I genuinely want to see, fellow Catholic guys, dressing better. So do not hesitate to, jump in my DMs and ask questions. So.
Beautiful, man. Well, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening today. We hope that this was helpful and hopefully it blessed your life. We hope to see you again next time. For now, it's time for you to go out there and be your best. God bless you.